Tonight, the tenants told to pay £150,000 to make their buildings safe. The block of flats in Haringey is owned by the council. Residents say they flagged the issue years ago, but now they've been landed with a huge bill.
They can do whatever, but they are not getting £150,000 from a house that is mine for years.
Euston, we have a problem. The station is closed for the big Easter getaway. We'll have the details on that and other planned works. Plus, one driver's lucky escape after scaffolding crashes down onto a street in Stoke Newington. And
we needed to figure out how we're going to get inside the vault, get the diamond and then get away. If we can pull it off, it was going to be the biggest heist of all time.
we speak to the real-life former gangster, part of the gang who plotted one of the capital's biggest heists, now getting the Guy Ritchie treatment.
You couldn't do that thing today. You couldn't try and do anything like we did. You know, you just wouldn't get away with it. I know we didn't get away with it, but you know, it's different times.
Good evening. People living in a block of flats in North East London have been forced to deal with crumbling walls and structural cracks for years, and are now being told they need to fork out more than £100,000 each to fix it. Issues with firemen's flats in Haringey were first flagged in 2017, with leaseholders there urging the council, which owns the building, to sort it. But 8 years later, nothing has been done, and the issue has only got worse. And residents telling us they don't feel safe in their homes. Their only options are now to foot the astronomical bill or sell up, minus the cost of the repairs. Jay Akper reports.
The moment you walk into firemen's flats in Haringey, it's clear something's not right. Cracks first appeared in 2007 throughout the building and its tenants' lives.
You can see the cracks before we even enter the flat.
Yeah, you can see that all around the door frame up to the neighbour's door.
They don't end there.
Right, Anthony, tell me what's going on here, because that does not look good.
It's been about 10 years we've been reporting cracking to our freeholder, which is Haringey Council. I have a young family and baby, in the room, and often as you're sleeping, you get dust falling down on you and particles coming down on you. So it's been a really frustrating experience.
For Anthony and the other tenants, they say the council hasn't carried out repairs despite a court order saying they needed to by November last year. Then in March, the council ordered each of the tenants to pay £150,000 to carry them out.
There's barely a space in this entire building where you can't see really obvious cracks. Inside and outside, the tenants obviously want them repaired. But to say they were shocked when the council said they had to pay for the repairs is a bit of an understatement.
I honestly thought it was a mistake. I mean, it just didn't make any sense, because there was no lead up to that. It was just a figure.
A figure they don't feel they're responsible for.
Basically, we need for them to admit responsibility, ultimately, for them to acknowledge that the structural side of the works is down to them, and to crack on and do the works themselves, without asking us for that portion of the monies.
Yeah, and you can see the cracks as well.
And behind there.
Carlos says communication would help too.
Nobody did anything about it. Sometimes they answer back, very few times.
He's lived here 35 years. His health is failing and he cannot afford the money he's been asked for.
They told me that they were asking for a huge amount of money. And I said to them, they can pray for it, they can come and murder me, they can do whatever, but they are not getting £150,000 from a house that is mine for years.
The council offered to buy their flat minus cost of repairs, but unlike the building, the tenants refused to crack.
Well, Jay, understandable frustration for the people living in those flats. What's the council had to say?
Well, one of the biggest issues outside of the money was the lack of communication. So we put a couple of their questions to Haringey Council. The first one is around insurance, because they thought they'd been paying into it through a service charge, so why didn't that cover the cost of repairs? The second was, even if the insurance policy didn't cover the cost of repairs, shouldn't that be the responsibility of the freeholder, which is the council? And unfortunately, we didn't get a direct answer from the council on either of those. Instead, they told us course, we appreciate this will be costly, but want to reiterate that only work that is necessary will be undertaken. We have taken a holistic approach to minimise long-term costs and ensure value for money for our leaseholders. We have kept all tenants and leaseholders regularly updated on progress and will continue to do so. So the council are determined to plough on, and that frustration you spoke of is quickly turning into desperation, because now you've got a group of people who feel like they're being bullied out of properties that they've paid for.
All right, Joe, we'll have to keep up with that story. Thank you very much. Next tonight, there will be a spanner in the works for thousands of people travelling over the Easter weekend as engineering works are set to close one of London's busiest train stations. Upgrades at Euston mean the station will be closed all weekend, while services to some other central London stations face diversions. Well, Kath O'Patter is at Euston for us this evening. Kath, huge disruption on such a busy weekend.
Lucrezia, huge disruption indeed. And if you're like me and were thinking of hopping on the train this Saturday in hope of a lovely Easter getaway, think again, because from Saturday to Monday, Euston Station will be closed due to, and I quote, vital railway improvements. Now, in the long run, these improvements will be beneficial to Euston, but people I've been speaking to here cannot see past the fog of disruption.
Oh, it doesn't worry me because I'm staying at home with my family.
But if you weren't?
Yeah, it probably annoy me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not too happy about it really. Won't be able to get back on Monday, but it is what it is. I'll find a way.
Obviously, that will be a big disruption for the general public. Don't know why they do that.
Some pretty annoyed customers there. Well, just a few hours ago, I spoke to Network Rail, asking them specifically about the closure of Euston Station.
So we recognise that any closure to the railway and the station as well can cause a disruption to our passengers. But this is a great opportunity over Easter and bank holiday weekends to make improvements to the network and also our station as well. Bank holiday weekends are often the best time to do works, given that there's the least passenger numbers that we see on the network.
Amanda Webster is there. Well, it's not just this station which is going to be affected. People hoping to get around the capital this weekend need to be aware of other train closures and disruptions, particularly from Victoria and London Bridge. So Victoria trains will be diverted to London Cannon Street, London Charing Cross or London Blackfriars from the 18th to the 21st of April. There's a reduced service between the London Victoria and Clapham Junction and East Croydon, with no trains calling at Battersea Park towards London Victoria. Trains which usually run between London Victoria and London Bridge will also not be in service. Neither will trains between London Bridge and Epsom. And so, Lucrezia, as always, the advice is check before you travel.
All right, Kath at Euston, thank you. Some other news now. Detectives have named a man who was stabbed in Walworth as Giovanni Rendon Bedoya. Emergency services were called to Hillingdon Street just after 9 p.m. on Monday, where the 21-year-old was pronounced dead. 6 people were arrested after the incident, but have since all been released. Police want anyone with information to come forward. And Tommy Robinson will stay in prison after losing his appeal against his 18-month sentence. The far-right activist, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, was convicted for contempt of court last October. His lawyers had argued that time in prison was making him ill. A driver was trapped in their car earlier today when a huge section of scaffolding crashed onto a Hackney road in high winds. The structure, which was being used to make repairs to Stoke Newington's public library, collapsed this morning, covering both lanes on Church Street, leaving locals fearing for their safety. Siham Ali reports.
A near miss in the early hours of this morning left locals in Stoke Newington shocked. Scaffolding on the 3-storey public library fell into the middle of the high street. Underneath was a man sat in his van. The London Fire Brigade confirmed that he later emerged unharmed. Those that I spoke to here say that it is pure luck that the scaffolding came down as early as it did. Any later and the outcome could have been very different, considering this is one of the busiest high streets in Hackney.
Me and my 5 neighbours, we realised there is a car under the scaffolding. We just try to run into it and take him out or give him a hand, or if he needs any helps.
Luck was on Ali's side today. A last-minute change to his routine ultimately saved him.
I usually drive into my workplace, so today I decided to come by train and transport. Around this time I always come across on that road.
You're feeling lucky then today?
Yeah, I feel lucky, yeah.
The library has been closed since March of last year due to a roof repair. One resident, whose identity we've concealed, says questions around the building's safety need to be addressed.
It's very scary, and I'm just wondering how could happen and what could went wrong with this. There's supposed to be like a safety measurements, so we'll have to find out, no?
Until then, the focus is on the clean-up and the reopening of Stoke Newington Church Street. Siham Ali, ITV News.
Still to come, why Hampstead tennis star Harriet Dart had to publicly apologise to her Rowan Open opponent, and
Dimitri Kutia has just become the Paralympic champion here in this men's.
From Épée to the Empire, double Paralympic champion fencer Dimitri Kutia joins me to talk about his newly awarded MBE. But first, it was one of the most audacious heists ever plotted was the centre of what was London's newest landmark. The plan: break into a lavish exhibition at the Millennium Dome, pocket the second largest flawless diamond in the world, and flee by speedboat down the Thames. One thing that hadn't been taken into account, however, was the eagle-eyed Met Police flying squad. In a new documentary series, Guy Ritchie tells the winding story of the diamond heist, where Rags Martel sat down with convicted former East End gang member Lee Wenham to hear the tale straight from the horse's mouth.
Are you all sitting comfortably?
A criminal on camera.
We had a team. The target was Millennium staff.
Lee Wenham was part of a mob who tried to bulldoze their way into the Millennium Dome and steal diamonds worth £350 million.
The plan was to obviously steal the £350 million worth of diamonds, use a JCB to enter the dome because you couldn't really use anything else. Get into the vault, go into the vault with a nail gun, smash through the glass, and then get away on a speedboat across the Thames.
Sounds simple.
It sounds simple, but it wasn't. Took a lot of planning.
I thought it was a publicity stunt by some film company, maybe Guy Ritchie or somebody.
The attempted robbery is now the focus of a new documentary produced by Guy Ritchie.
This was going to be my last job.
What's it like being back at the Dome today?
Feels a bit strange, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not that keen on coming to the Dome.
Ladies and gentlemen, the debaters of Millennium.
In the months leading up to the robbery, Lee visited the diamonds on display at the Millennium exhibition. The gang hoped to use a JCB to break into the Dome and get away on a speedboat down the Thames.
My part was to supply all the machinery, vehicles, a nail gun, or stuff like that, and go to the Dome and check out all the security.
The plan to steal the diamonds from the Millennium Dome was bold, some might say even brave, but there was a problem. The police knew about it from the very beginning.
What they didn't know was that we were following them.
Did you have any clue that the police knew about what you were all doing and what you were all planning?
No, I didn't have any clue. Obviously, if we had a clue, we wouldn't have done it. No, we didn't have an inkling that what was going on.
And when did you realise something was wrong?
I realised something was wrong when the police dragged me out of a car and put a gun to my head and laid me on the floor. That's when I knew.
When did it sink in that, like, you're going to jail?
Straight away, as soon as I was arrested, I knew I was going away. It was just a matter of how long. So this is where we'll come with a boat across there.
The documentary features his daughter Beth, who was taken to the Dome as a child while her father planned the heist. What was it like for you knowing that he was going to go to jail?
I was still quite young, so I didn't quite really understand. I think it more hit me when I actually had to go and see him. It's not something I would want anybody else to go through, losing a parent like that.
Lee was jailed for 4.5 years for his part in the attempted robbery at the Dome. It's actually not that much, maybe 4.5 years. Do you think you got off lightly?
Might not be much to you, but it was enough.
In the documentary, you say you have no regrets. Is that still true?
I have no regrets about doing it. You know, we took a chance on it. you know the consequences. You know you either get it and I have £1 million, or I'll get 9 or 10 years inside. That's the chance you take. But I've got no regrets. The only thing I regret is not getting the money, obviously, and I regret what it done to my kids. You know, over the 4.5 years I was away.
And what do you do now?
I'm a landscape gardener. I've got a landscape garden business.
So you drive a JCB?
I do still drive JCBs, yeah, but I've put all the criminal stuff behind me, and you know, I've got a good partner. I've got 2 lovely daughters and 9 grandchildren, and life's pretty good now, yeah.
Some people would say like crime doesn't pay, and it's kind of weird talking to a criminal. What would you say to that?
I wouldn't say it's weird talking to a criminal. What's weird about it? Crime doesn't pay, to be honest.
To promote the documentary, real diamonds are back on display in London, this time on a billboard in Clapham. Lee says he has no plans to take this one, although in his new book, he does call himself the Diamond Gangster. Rags Martel, ITV News, at the O2.
A bit of sport now. London tennis star Harriet Dart has publicly apologised to her Rouen Open opponent after criticising how she smells during a game.
Can you tell her to wear deodorant? To wear deodorant? She's smelling really bad.
Well, the comments were made to the umpire during her 4th round match with Lois Boisson, but they were picked up on a courtside mic. The 28-year-old from Hampstead took to Instagram to apologise, saying she has a lot of respect for the French player and will learn from the incident. Now, former post mistress from Surrey, who was wrongly jailed while she was pregnant in the midst of the Post Office Horizon IT scandal, has been awarded an OBE for her services to justice. Seema Misra was 8 weeks pregnant with her 2nd child when she was sentenced to more than a year in prison after being wrongly convicted of stealing £70,000 from her branch in West Byfleet. She gave birth while in prison. Her work is helping to overturn the convictions of innocent workers, highlighted by ITV drama Mr Bates versus the Post Office, gained royal recognition, and she hopes it will help victims of other scandals.
It is going in the right direction, and hopefully this will give some more weight to it as well. So the fight is still on, full and final compulsory for everybody, but most importantly, accountability. So an actual culprit with a heavy penalty behind the bar time. To set a right example, the system does work in the country.
Well, my guest tonight also received royal recognition today for his success with Paralympics GB. Ealing's Dimitri Couture was awarded an MBE for services to fencing after being named in the King's New Year's Honours. He received his medal from Princess Anne at Windsor earlier today, and here's a reminder of one of his gold medal moments in Paris last year.
Needing one more point. And that is it. He almost looks as though he cannot believe it. Dimitri Couture has just become the Paralympic champion here in this men's foil category B. And that is the biggest sign of relief that we have seen.
Oh, amazing scenes, and Dimitri joins us now. Hello. How does it make you feel watching that back?
Yeah, I mean, it's still like really hard for me to allow that moment to sink in, especially considering it's 7-8 months ago now.
Yeah.
And the commentator summed it up well. It was just overwhelming relief, to be honest, because the amount of pressure that was on us during that cycle, and to come away with that result was fantastic.
Well, it happened. It really did happen, because you're wearing, you know, the evidence to prove it. It's the 2 gold medals that you got, but then you've also got a silver and a bronze in the team events as well. I mean, fantastic, outstanding.
Yeah, it was incredible, and you know, our whole team worked really hard this cycle, and it's been very challenging for all of us in very different ways this cycle. So I'm very proud of us to not only come away with all the individual medals we won, but to get those silver and bronze medals were incredible. And
pretty special.
Yeah.
Also pretty special. And the other thing we've got is not just your Paralympics medals here, but also, there you go, your MBE awarded fresh from this morning from Windsor. How was that experience?
Yeah, really surreal, because you know, the palace itself was very grand, and just being able to be there with my family and seeing so many other people who are receiving their investitures as well, and you know, so many achievements just in one room, and meeting the Princess Royal as well.
So what, I always ask this because I'm trying to do my best to lip read here, but what's she saying to you?
She was just asking me, you know, what was Paris like, and you know, what's your plans for the future, and you know, it was a very personable conversation, and yeah, it was a short little chat, but yeah, it was nice. And
yeah, you're actually world #1, aren't you, in fencing?
yes.
This is why you get an MBE. This is why you get all these medals. I mean, how on earth did you get into it in the first place?
Honestly, I was just a bit nerdy with, you know, I quite like sword fighting in films when I was a kid, and I heard fencing was an option at the secondary school that I was attending, so I very excitedly took it up as an option, and then, you know, the first thing they tell you is it's not at all like the films.
Yeah.
And once you get over that initial disappointment, you really fall in love with the sport, and it kind of snowballed from there to doing it once a week to twice a week, and
gosh,
that's my full-time job.
And now you are world #1, which is pretty fantastic. I know we keep saying it, but you know, it's not often you get world #1 anything in studio, I have to say.
Thank you.
You were at Tokyo, weren't you, as well? And you got bronze there, so you really progressed. And I suppose the next thing you have in your sights is going to be 2028, which is going to be Los Angeles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think, looking back on my career, it's been a lot of, you know, learning, and I made several mistakes, especially in the rear cycle, and corrected them a little bit, but not enough before Tokyo. So I think almost the results kind of reflect what I did. So, but then correcting enough mistakes and learning even more allowed me to get these golds in Paris, and would like to see how much more I can improve for the next time around.
Very quick question. I know you train in Bath, but you're from Ealing. Are you a superstar in Ealing?
I don't know, to be honest. And, you know, for those who know me, I hope I've made them proud. And, yeah, and I'm forever grateful to whoever follows my story and shows me support.
Well, listen,
so,
thank you so much for joining us. All your medals and your MBE, Dimitri.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Sally is here now. And Sally, things have picked up considerably when it comes to the weather. Is it looking better for Easter?
It has improved. In fact, Charlene looked so upset last night. I texted her this morning and said, don't worry, it's not quite as bad
She made it better.
as it was. And I bring the better news to you, Lucrezia.
Thank you very much.
So it's still a bit dodgy on Saturday and Monday, but hopefully not a complete washout. Some patchy rain around. Monday's still a few days off, but concentrating between now and Sunday. So Friday's okay, Saturday's the one that's not quite so good. And Sunday, we might get a little bit of sunshine. Keep everything crossed, everyone. Here we go.
ITV London weekday weather is sponsored by Octopus, the renewable energy company.
Hello again. Well, I wore a thick coat today, and rather like this horse, when I was in the sunshine, I was pretty hot. But that wind did whip through, probably did a little bit of damage to some of the blossom that we've had outside. Lighter winds tomorrow, you'd be pleased to hear. Mostly dry, but there are still some showers around, particularly further west you live. And then into Friday, we've got some sunshine, particularly to start the day, turning cloudier, but it is looking dry. And as we head on into Saturday, this low pressure continues to move south. We have an occlusion over us, which could bring some patchy rain, but things aren't looking as unsettled as they were. And in fact, into Sunday, it's looking quite bright. Although it's changeable into Monday, hopefully our bank holiday weekend won't be too bad. Fingers crossed anyway. Right, let's take a little look at the rest of this evening. So we've got a lot of clear skies to close things off, a nice end to the day, but it's going to get chilly overnight, quite close to freezing in a few spots, and a bit of mist and fog forming as well. So it will be a cold start tomorrow morning. You might get some early sunshine, particularly the further east you live. You can see, though, we've got cloud joining us as the day goes on, and some showers. More of those to the west, the odd heavy one, but there's plenty of dry weather as well. And our temperatures similar to today, highs of 14 to 17, but because we've got those lighter winds, if you find a nice sunny spot, hopefully it won't feel too bad. Into the evening, the cloud and the showers disappear off out of the way, and we end the evening on a nice note in many areas. So Friday, hopefully you'll see a bit of sunshine, even though that cloud is likely to move in. Bit more unsettled for Saturday, looking half decent for Easter Sunday. Cheerio.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Thanks, Sally, and fingers crossed for that sunshine. But that's it for now. The evening news is next with Mary. But for now, from all of us on the London team, bye-bye. Have a great evening.